Welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And we're going to geek out today a little bit on some technical things, but honestly, it's things that you need to know. As podcasters, especially when you're guesting, you want leads and clients, right? So you want to bring them into your e-list. But if they aren't going to your inbox, um, it's for nothing. And so I have email marketing nerd. I didn't give him that name. He did. Tyler Cook on the show. So I'm super excited to geek out on these really important strategies and what's going on in email world.
Me too. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You bet. I know email marketing, and when it comes to deliverability, people, I feel like they get anxious, but also their eyes glaze over because they're just, it's so confusing and it's gotten so convoluted over the past few years. It's not what it used to be. Um, yeah, I mean, it's good for you because it brings you business,
Sure, it's
but
good for me, but yeah, it's kind of a black box in some cases, for sure.
I know it's a little overwhelming. So I'm just going to dive in and barrage you with questions if that's cool.
Yeah, please do.
Awesome. So I was just told recently that there were some changes with iOS and Apple products and so forth that impact deliverability. Now, I do remember, I want to say it was a year ago, but I don't remember that Apple, it just like automatically opens emails. So your email provider says it's opened, but really it isn't. What are the truth behind those updates?
Yeah, so if you are using the Apple Mail client, your activity is somewhat masked, where the pixel that is inserted in all of the emails gets loaded essentially remotely, which counts as the email open. So if you were to segment out, any of your Apple users in your email list and send them an email, generally speaking, you're going to get like an 80% plus open rate. Because it's all let's say hidden, right? So that is 100% true. That's also why, everybody has kind of shifted their open rate benchmarks by about 10%. It used to be that if you were, getting above 25% open rates, that was fairly healthy, right? Everybody's shifted that to now you need to be looking for 35 to 40% open rates to understand if you have a healthy email list or not, simply because 10 percentages to at least 10% across most lists is kind of like hidden opens, if you will. It's all fake opens.
That's a good way to put it is fake opens. So it's almost like the stats are kind of inflated. So if you're like, "Ooh, I have 50% opens." It's like you don't really, but so you kind of have to
Mhm.
take the numbers with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of email marketers even shifted over to, well, your click rate is the source of truth. And even the challenge with that is, when you're in B2B, there are tools that will click on links for the end user, for the subscriber, to make sure that there's no malicious content hiding behind the link. And so even your click rate can be pretty inflated due to what's called non-human interaction with the email.
Oh, damn, I did not know that.
Yeah, because I do a lot of work in the B2B space, we've actually had to implement a couple of like it's called like hidden links within
Yeah.
emails to try to parse out who is automatically clicking on all of these links so we can build segments of those people so then we get closer to our true data.
Ooh, I love all the sneaky little loopholes. So you said the word health. What is the difference then between email health and your like email deliverability score? I kind of hear both terms. Are they different?
Yeah, when I talk about email health, I really think more of like how subscribers are interacting with you, like how healthy is the list, meaning
Mm.
are they engaged with you, right? Are they opening? Are they looking forward to emails from you and your brand? Whereas deliverability is more about your reputation as it pertains to Google, Outlook, Yahoo, and those people that are actually like receiving the emails for you.
Gotcha. So let's dive into email deliverability then, because I do know email health and hygiene is important, but I think it's the deliverability that entrepreneurs can't fully wrap their heads around. So, how do you explain that in an easy to understand way?
Yeah, so there's kind of like two functions to deliverability. And so you'll hear kind of these two terms interchange quite a bit, but they're not actually the same. So the first one is just like email being delivered, right? And this is where you need to have the correct technical setup to make sure that your emails just can be delivered, right? So this is where it's SPF records, your DKIM, your DMARC, like all of the just technical infrastructure that you'll need to make it so that when you hit send, that email is received by the mailbox provider like Google, right? Then you have more of what I call like the art of deliverability,
Yeah.
which is how are you sending in such a way that mailbox providers like getting emails from you and then put your emails in front of their users, right?
Yes. So I know it's one thing to say that, oh, it got sent out, but did it hit the actual inbox? Is it in promo folder? Is it in spam folder? Is it like just disappear off the face of the planet?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Um, and so that we understand correctly, obviously there is Yahoo. People have their domain like at smoothbusinessgrowth.com. They have, Gmail and so forth. Do they each all have their own rules of like what they will let in?
Yes. Yes, Outlook is the worst.
Ooh.
Meaning they have not they are very tight-lipped about how anything works over there. And even when they do give guidance, oftentimes we'll actually see that guidance not hold up over time. So it's kind of like contradictory where they're saying, well, we want you to do this, and then we go and we do that thing, but then emails aren't delivered. And so we're like, hey, Outlook, we did that thing, but it didn't
Right?
work.
Thanks for the help.
Exactly. So every mailbox provider like Google, Outlook, Yahoo, they have their own algorithms. They have their own things that they're looking for. Outlook is more of a black box than most of them. Google's pretty tight-lipped and Yahoo's pretty tight-lipped, but they have given more guidance than almost anybody else as well.
Thank God. So even though my email is lindsay@smoothbusinessgrowth.com, I use Gmail to like pull all of my different emails into that one inbox. Does that mean then that, or like Google Workspace, does that mean then it's Google rules that count?
For the most part, yes. Like
Okay.
this is where we can get into some really nuance of like there's specific rules that you could set up on how those emails are received into your inbox that will override the algorithms. And then different like rules around SMTP stuff and
Right.
IMAP and POP and things like that. So, but for the most part, yes, because it's flowing into a Google
Okay.
Workspace account, their algorithm is going to kind of be like that base layer of like email sorting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's what I kind of figured. So I've also heard kind of like chatter, I don't believe it, but that it's some people are like, "Oh, Keep has better email deliverability. Active Campaign doesn't have very good email deliverability. Funnel Gorgeous is better. Go High Level's better." Does it really matter what system you're using? Like, does that impact anything?
Not really. Um, there has been cases of, platforms being really abused. And so because the platform has been abused, then mailbox providers do take action against that platform. But there has to be a level of abuse that is happening across the platform at such a high level for that to even happen. Um, So not really. Like you're gonna see good deliverability on almost any platform. Um, what really matters more so is how the platform is managing their IP addresses and whether or not they're rotating through and they're keeping good pools and they've got good relationships with the postmasters at each mailbox provider like
Yeah.
Google, Yahoo, and Outlook.
Okay. Because I sort of felt like, well, it's the same mechanism and like your DKIM, your all of those little technical nuances. So I was kind of like, well, what does it matter what platform it is? But
So one of the things too that a lot of people don't realize, but this is where my nerdiness is going to show over email, is whenever you use an email service provider, they insert essentially like a signature into that
yeah.
email, right? And so realistically, if Gmail wanted to, they could put a global rule that says if this email signature is in the code of your email, so like if you're using HubSpot, theoretically they could just stop emails from getting delivered by them today, like right now if they wanted to. But they understand the marketing world and they understand that like, oh, there are subscribers that are opting in that want this communication. And so that's why platform largely doesn't matter as long as they have the right infrastructure and bandwidth on the IP side to manage the volume of emails that their users are sending out.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know when emails come in and they're from a platform, sometimes the little code at the top, like near the subject line, it'll say, you know, Lindsay from blah 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 at Kartra dot. Like it kind of has
Mhm.
your provider in there, but you can change that so that it just says it's coming from you and not from you through Kartra, correct?
Yep, 100%. So
Okay.
that when it says, via Lindsay at
Yes, via.
kartra.com or whatever, that usually means that there's an issue somewhere with your alignment, right? So that's where you'd want to look at your SPF records, your DKIM, because it's typically something going on in those two records that is misaligned for whatever reason. And once you align those, that via tag disappears.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And I had another question, but it kind of escaped me. So I know there's a lot of rules, of course, in regards to, the can spam rules and making sure that people have the ability to unsubscribe. Um, what are some of the rules that we need to abide by that impact deliverability?
Sure. And this is such a great question because about a year, let's see, what month is it? March? Yeah, roughly about a year ago, Google and Yahoo teamed up to roll out stricter authentication protocols. And this is where now it's essential that you put that DMARC record on your
Yeah.
domain to be able to send, right? Well, a couple of other things that they want you to do is they want you to have an unsubscribe header. Now, for most of us out there, your email platform should do this for you. So there's not really anything that we need to do. Um, but if you notice in your inbox now, oftentimes when you're getting a marketing email, there's like a blue unsubscribe right next to their sender name in the inbox now. And that's what I
Mm,
mean by the unsubscribe header. And so that's actually becoming more and more of a requirement to get your emails delivered. Because again, there's Google and Yahoo, they're getting so many emails and they know that's like most of them are all spam, right? That they are enforcing these different rules to make unsubscribing as easy as possible.
yeah.
Um, so because of that, a couple of like other things that I've noticed is actually like the size of your unsubscribe text can make impacts where Google recognizes if you're trying to play games with your text, right? With the body copy of the email. And if you make that unsubscribe button too small or too hard to see, that will be your email will be penalized in the inbox. Like they are tracking that information. Um, and so it's really interesting where oftentimes like I've seen a trend. It's kind of disappeared a little bit, but there was a trend a little while ago where you'd put a huge spacer at the bottom of your email to push the unsubscribe down. Well, what happens if you do that is there's kind of a couple things. One, people mark you as spam more often. Um, Two, Google and Yahoo will penalize you based off of that huge space there, right? They want to make it easy for their users to unsubscribe. So those aren't necessarily laws, right? That you have to have like an easily visible unsubscribe. You do have to have the unsubscribe link, but there's things that Google and Yahoo and Outlook know that you're trying to like, skirt around the systems to keep more of your subscribers. They're tracking that and they know that. And then your next send is penalized usually.
So dang smart. It's insane. I remember what I wanted to ask you now.
Yeah.
So there's also the different services that are available. I forget what they're called, but like Mailgun, like post something service. I forget what they're called.
Postmark. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, are they essential? Are they needed for that email deliverability?
It really depends on the software that you're using. So what's funny about that conversation is most ESPs use like Mailgun or SendGrid
Oh,
or Postmark as like their underlying email sending infrastructure, and they've just built this interface that sits over top of it, right?
got it.
And so those are like major players. So for very high volume senders, um, sometimes it's beneficial to get started with like a SendGrid account or a Postmark account, and then you build your own connection into the ESP that you're using because you do have much greater control by doing it that way. But there are a lot of technical things that you have to get right and that you have to manage. And so for most senders out there, it's not really a good solution because you're not going to manage it well over time. You would really need somebody full time to be managing that infrastructure for you.
Oh, geez. So I know like a lot of the entrepreneurs that I know, it's like Kartra, Go High Level or Funnel Gorgeous, whatever you want to call it, Keep, Active Campaign. What are some of the other big players? ConvertKit. Those I feel like are the main ones that I hear people are using. So would you, not that you know each one individually, but would you say typically those bigger players are sitting on the infrastructure of a Mailgun or a Postmark type service?
Yeah, generally. I mean,
Okay.
with Go High Level, right, their whole infrastructure is tied very closely to Mailgun.
Mm,
And so there's two ways that you set up Go High Level typically is they rolled out what they call their lead connector program.
yeah.
It's all sent through Mailgun, right? Like that's the
Okay.
user underlying that. It's just you control everything through Go High Level. Or you can set up your own Mailgun account through Go High Level and then manage it that way, right?
Hmm.
And then you could also do it through Postmark, through Go High Level as well if you wanted to, or even SendGrid. But like I said, there's a little bit more technical um, things that need to happen for you to do that.
Yeah, totally. So much tech. It's like sweet Jesus.
Yes.
It's overwhelming. But I know there are ways in that you send emails that impacts. And so I want to dive into that a little bit. So, Go High Level, for instance, will allow you to send out in batches. So it's like you can send out 200 emails every 5 minutes. Does that actually make a difference? And then I'll give another scenario where Active Campaign says to email out based on their engagement. So only email out the same email to the people that are like new to the lesson the past 15 days. And then send the email out to those that have been engaged in the past 2 months. And then separately, like, you know what I mean? Like you're emailing them out in separate batches in two different ways. That sounds bloody complicated. Does it work?
Yeah, so let me talk about the first question real quick.
Okay.
Yes, the size of the list does matter,
Okay.
and we have seen um, direct deliverability implications depending on how many people you're sending to, right?
Mhm.
Now, from the data that I have access to and from the conversations that I've had, the like let's just talk Google's algorithm real quick. First and foremost, Google's algorithm is individual first, right? So
Yeah.
if I sent the same email to 10 people and I had two of them are opening everything from me and the other eight never open anything from me, I can send the exact same email, and those two people that are highly engaged will get the email to the inbox, and the other ones that haven't engaged, like it could go to promotions, could go to spam, it could go somewhere else, right? Because the algorithm is individualized
Yeah.
first, right? Now, with that being said, Google also recognizes, hey, you just sent this email out, the same email out to 10 of our users. Like they track that. They know that you're sending this marketing email out to let's just say a herd, right? A group of people that are using their software. And they also look at how did the herd interact with that email, and that affects your center reputation,
Yeah.
right? And so one of the games that you can play that can be really complicated is how do you, if you have a list of 10,000 people, how do you break that list into smaller groups in an easy way, right? So then instead of having, one email that went out to 10,000 people affecting your reputation, now you have two emails, right, that went out to 5,000 people, and then another email that went out to 5,000 people. So you still emailed your whole list, but the groups are much smaller, and so the percentages are different,
Totally.
right? Um, And so, yes, that does make impacts. And there's ways that you can do it to make it much easier on yourself. And then that leads us to the second question, which is, should I be segmenting my list based off of engagement? So yeah, that's one of the things one of the first things that we do when we are working with a new client is we set up segments based off of engagement, right? 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, 90 to 180, and then 180 days plus are the typical engagement segments that we build. Now, one caveat with that, which we talked about briefly before with the non-human interaction,
Exactly.
um, your 0 to 30-day engagement, half of those people at least are fake, meaning they're real subscribers, but the engagement being tracked isn't actual real engagement. And so this is where you do want to be careful about that group of people, because there could be a lot of Apple openers there, or there could be a lot of bots, like non-human interaction. There's still a real subscriber behind that activity, but the initial engagement is not real, right? Um, and I learned that when I was sending out a one-click registration for a challenge for a client, and we had like 600 people opt in like 10 seconds,
Right.
but it was all fake, right? Because it was these
Yeah.
bots clicking on that link that then triggered the other automation to get them started through
Yeah.
the challenge. And so it was like, oh, we need to go back and fix that and remove those people out because they didn't actually want the challenge, but now they're going to start getting a daily email
So how
about
do you
this
know which ones are
challenge.
real and which ones are not?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the things that we've started doing, and if anybody's interested on like exactly how to do this, because sometimes you need like a reference. I wrote about this on my LinkedIn a little while ago.
Oh,
So go to
nice.
my LinkedIn and like scroll through some of my posts there.
Okay.
What we do is we actually use the footer in every email. So we structure it as two, and then we merge in the subscriber's email address, the from, which is you, and then the email address and then the unsubscribe. But what we do is we bold and underline the two, right? And then we link that just back to your website, but we're effectively masking the link, so you can't actually tell it's a link anywhere. And then anybody who clicks on that link, we tag as a probable bot click, because it doesn't look like a link.
Ah,
Nobody should be clicking on that.
right.
And typically the font size is we put footers at like 12 to 14 is the
Yeah.
font size. So usually people, like, you're not going to fat finger it, right? So it's highly likely that anybody who's
Yeah.
clicking on this masked link is a bot, because they recognize there's a link there, but our eyes
Yeah.
can't see it.
No.
And so that's how we
Smart.
build those segments and segment those people out so that we can send to them differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, for one of my clients, we will send marketing emails to that list, and it gets like a 98% click-through rate every time, but it's all bots.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Um, and then so I know I find this whole engagement thing kind of weird because, of course, again, the open rates are a little bit inflated, the click rates and so forth. So it's like, they say, oh, have a re-engagement sequence. And it's like, yeah, have it, but are does it really work? Because they're the same bot or the same, iOS open is just opening that anyways. So are they really re-engaged? Like it's so difficult.
Yeah, and this is where tools like Go High Level, or I know that Active Campaign is rolling out their SMS stuff right now. But this is where I'm a big believer in secondary communication channels, right?
Yeah.
To where one of the things that we've implemented is with the data that we have, the engagement window is a lot smaller than most people think. It's about 25 to 30 days. If you can't get a subscriber to actually engage with an email in about 25 to 30 days, that subscriber is as good as lost, right? And so when we build our win back campaigns and our at risk and sunset flows, we base it off of 30 days, 45 days, and then 90 days. But one of the key things that we do is we try to loop in what I call secondary channels. And so Go High Level has their SMS. So we'll
Yeah.
leverage text messaging as part of trying to win them back.
Awesome.
Um, because I do a lot of work in the B2B space, we'll also leverage like LinkedIn DMing
Yeah.
to win back a lot of those subscribers.
Ooh, I love that. That's so smart. And you want to have multiple channels of communication anyways. It's just not everyone goes to their inbox.
Right, right.
You want to, yeah, get them wherever they hang out, so to speak. Thank you so much for that information on the deliverability. There's like it's so confusing for a lot of people. And I've been in it a lot and so know a lot of the technical stuff, but it's like still it's hard to wrap your head around. Now, before we hit record, you were mentioning some potential updates that are coming up with Google. So I would love for you just to at least touch base on that before we pivot slightly and help podcast hosts with their emails.
Yeah, yeah. I'll answer that in kind of two ways because you did also ask a question earlier that I didn't get to. iOS and one of their updates that they're doing is they're rolling out categories very similar to Google's categories of promotions, updates, social, and
Gotcha.
things like that. Um, I I would imagine that if your audience is mostly Apple users, you're seeing fluctuations in engagement as their algorithms are trying to figure out how to use the categories that they've built, right? So if you've seen a drop in engagement, you may be able to win that back, but just be aware that Apple is using categories like that now, and your emails could be getting funneled into one of those categories.
Gotcha.
And then your the second question is yes, Google. I was seeing posts about it yesterday, and I don't have it yet. I don't have access to it yet, but Google is currently rolling out an update that's called Manage Subscriptions, where essentially in the web browser or the app on your phone, what you're going to see is you're going to see a tab that just says Manage Subscriptions, and what they're doing is they're basically going to be um, let's see, rolling up all emails from the same sender into one view. So like, oh, I want to see all of my emails from Tyler. Like they're going to be able to go to manage subscriptions, see all of those senders, see all of the emails that those senders are sending, right? Just to much more efficiently and effectively, one, honestly, be able to unsubscribe, right? Manage their inbox. And then two, just be able to see where it is that they've been subscribed to.
That's really good because sometimes you do get an email and you're like, did I subscribe to that? But as a user, like, take my marketing hat off for a minute. I would love to see, okay, who am I? Like, I would love to see a list of who am I subscribed to and like, do I really need that or I want to keep that one? You know what I mean? Like, that's super handy. But from a marketing perspective, yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see how it
Yeah,
goes.
I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with it, I think, where, as an email marketer, some of these things, it's like, why do we have to jump through so many hoops to
I
get content
know.
in front of our audience, right? But at the same time, I also view it as like, okay, cool, like this is just a way for me to sharpen my axe so to speak, to be really good at what I do, to send useful content, to send high quality content, because I know that if I don't, we're going to be penalized in the inbox. So it is a pain, but it does force you to be
I
good.
know. And quick question, does it matter? Because people ask me this all the time. Does it matter how many times you email out in a week? Because some people, there's all like, oh, I only email out once a week. And I'm like, I don't know if that's smart. And then some people are like, I email every day. And I was like, ooh, that seems a lot. So it's like, does it matter?
It does matter in a couple of ways, but it mostly matters based off of your audience and your product and your offer, right? So I do a lot of work in the B2B space. I work with companies that typically have long sales cycles.
Mm,
We're sending 2 to 3 emails a week out to their list, and that's where most brands should be,
yeah,
is two to
that's what I
three
figured.
emails per week. Um, One of the things that does impact deliverability is consistency, right?
Yeah.
So you got to think like this is a computer managing it. What they like seeing is they like seeing patterns, right? And so if you don't email for a week, then you have a huge volume, then you don't email for a week, then you have a huge
Yeah.
volume, you don't email for a week. They don't like that. It's like they will penalize you for that. So sometimes brands, they see a huge uplift when they start emailing every day, especially if it's at the exact same time, because the algorithm loves it, right?
Ah,
They actually like that because it's like we know what's coming. Um, we can kind of plan for it. And so sometimes brands do get actually much better results by emailing every single day because
wow.
they're working with the algorithm instead of like kind of the sporadic.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good to know. So so guests again are looking to, expand their email list to grow it, get more leads and so forth. But I find a lot of hosts, sure they want to get leads, but I feel like their main goal, especially with the podcast, is to build that audience, to get people to engage with the episodes and just interact in a bigger way. So I kind of want to lean into that for a few minutes before I lose you.
Yeah.
And so I know you said you were working with some podcasters to help grow their audience and their podcast. So yeah, I would love any tips.
Yeah, so a couple of things that I've experimented with a bunch of things. And so I'll kind of like throw out a couple of ideas
Yeah.
that we worked on in kind of the results that we saw. So the first one that we tried, and this was when one of my clients, they really wanted to climb like the ranks of
Yeah.
like wherever their podcast was landing. And to be honest, I don't understand those algorithms very well. But I just kind of approached it as the more listens we get across the more episodes, like that should show that the podcast is popular. So we should see like an increase in how we're
Yeah.
being ranked, right? Like I was like, that's a good
Totally.
assumption, I feel like. So what we did is we actually linked a bunch of podcasts together. So what it was is we took 20 of this client's podcasts and we set it up in an email flow. And the logic between each episode was basically, did they click to the previous podcast, right? So we had podcast number one, got sent out, wait 3 days, then do a logic check of, did this subscriber click to listen to that episode or did they not? If they didn't engage, we only sent them that one email. But if they engaged with it, we sent them the next email 3 days later with a new podcast episode. And so we kind of like chained those podcasts together. Um, but what it did is it basically we got a lot of listens across a lot of episodes in about a month, and again, this is more like anecdotal, I feel like is the word right here, where I don't know if this was the exact reason why we climbed
Right.
the ranks, but we jumped up about 15 spots.
That's pretty
So
good.
I have to imagine that it did something. It may not have been
Yeah.
the main thing, but it did something. Um, and so now we'll do that periodically when we want to have like a boost in listeners.
Yeah.
So
What
that
a
was
great
really
tactic.
good. Yeah, that one was really good. Let's see. Another one that we have tried is inserting just like audio snippets inside the email. So instead of linking
Yeah.
out to the whole podcast, linking to audio snippets. That one's gone better. So that one I'm a big fan of. We also tried putting a podcast episode in the footer of every email.
Mm,
Um, Again, just to have like a consistent call to action, because a lot of our,
totally.
not a lot, but not every email that we send out for clients has like a buy now or a schedule or
Exactly. They're
type
more
of.
value driven.
Exactly. And so we put the link to a link to the most popular podcasts that we have, and then just wrote up a little script about,
Hmm.
hey, go check this out. That one got really consistent clicks, so I really like it. The only thing with that is you do have to swap out that link at least once every 30 days, because it
Yeah,
makes it
100%.
impacts your deliverability.
Yeah.
But that one worked really well in just consistent branding and getting the podcast
Yeah.
out there,
I
as a
like
few
that.
ideas that we've tried to get the podcast out consistently.
So when you say audio snippets, like what are you actually pointing them to?
Yeah, so for that one, because we wanted to retarget them, we actually pointed them back to our like the client's website that had just these really short audio snippets on it.
Oh, okay.
Um, we have tried doing it with YouTube shorts or like reels of that. And those didn't go as well, but again, that feel like that's mostly because a lot of my audience is in B2B. And
Yeah.
so we were taking them off like work hours platform, if you will, right? Like by
That's
going taking them to
hilarious. Yeah,
TikTok.
yeah. But does so when it comes to email deliverability, this is also a good question because the links they say, oh, make sure the links are like domain so that it goes to your website. But if the links, if you have too many links that go to YouTube, Facebook, wherever else, that you get dinged. Is that true?
Yeah, so yeah, this is a good question. So I was talking to another deliverability guy that I know pretty well, and he was telling me about this project that he was working on. This longtime client of his came to him and he's like, Evan, I sent out an email like a week ago, and all of my emails are going to spam, and I don't know what's going on. And so Evan started doing a whole bunch of, the typical tests and could not figure it out. And so eventually, when you get to that point, what you do is you start with a clean slate. Like you literally send out a
Mm.
blank email with almost nothing in it,
Yeah.
and then you start adding features in because you're trying to see what specific element in that email is
Oh,
really impacting it. It ended up being the phone number in this client of his signature. He had just gotten a new phone number for his business. And when you looked at the reputation of that phone number, it was bad because there was a telemarketing company that had it for years previous,
oh,
right?
how do they
That
know that?
got that dumped the number. And so it went back into like the available number pool. And it just so happens that this guy is the one that bought it, right? So the reason I bring that story up, which is crazy,
I
right? That
know.
just like
Thank God you
that
found it out.
that one element, just the phone number
Yeah.
was the thing that was impacting it. Nothing
Wow.
else in the emails. Yes, the links that you send out could impact your deliverability, right? Even the type of link that you send out. So Google doesn't like shorteners like bitly,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're using link shorteners, you can get dinged. They also don't like a lot of redirects, right? So if you've, let's say, rebranded 5 times, but you still have the original domain that you
Yeah.
used and you're redirecting every domain to the new one, that could be impacting your deliverability because they're recognizing that you're redirecting through all of these other domains to finally get to the endpoint, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, reputation, if you're linking out to casino sites typically have poorer reputations,
I
right?
understand that.
So if you link out to a casino site, you'll see worse deliverability than if you linked out to like your website or
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's super helpful to know. I know with one client, we used YouTube Shorts, and it was good because the short actually got way more views. And also because of that, they got more subscribers. So, I mean, I don't want to abuse the sending the outside links, but yeah, I think testing, it's always testing, right? But
Yeah, and
um,
so to that point too, just in because you're in the podcasting space, and I'm not sure how many listeners of your podcast also post their podcasts on YouTube.
A lot,
Um,
yeah.
okay, perfect. So one of the strategies that we did, so one of my clients was working with a YouTube guy. And so he and I would meet once a month. And I mean, obviously, like the big thing on YouTube is you have to have the right audience that's consuming your videos. So then YouTube starts to recommend your videos to other
Mm,
similar audiences, right? So this client of mine focuses specifically on COOs of companies. And so what we did is we sent out an email asking everybody to update their job title just so we could build this list of COO specific job titles. And then for the YouTube strategy, what we would do is when we were promoting a video, we would send it for about 3 months. We only sent those videos to the COO audience because we were basically trying to force the algorithm to say, this is who we want you to show our videos to, right?
yeah.
And so, and it actually worked really, really well where my clients' um, videos started getting recommended to more and more COOs, more of his ICP, more executives, because we kind of like focused the algorithm on no, these are the only people that we want you to show these videos to. So for your
So smart.
podcasters, if you have a very specific ICP, try to create a segment of that ICP and then send your YouTube
Yeah.
content to them first for 2 to 3 months, just because it helps retrain the algorithm so then it starts promoting you to the right people.
Dang, that's so smart. I know this episode has gone longer than I normally do, but oh my goodness, this information is so valuable. And it just helps so many more entrepreneurs actually get some ROI out of their email marketing instead of being frustrated. So, obviously, Tyler, you help people with their email deliverability. You work one on one in programs. How do you typically work?
Yeah, so a few different ways. We do obviously full list management. So if
Ooh,
you're
yep.
frustrated with email and you're like, I just want somebody new who knows what they're doing to manage this for me, we do that. We handle all of the deliverability, all of your automations, all of your email copy. We'll strategize with you on how to grow your list and the different things that we're seeing working, A/B testing, all of that stuff. If you're more of a high volume sender and you're concerned about your deliverability, we do have a 90-day like rehabilitation that will take
Ooh,
you through to get you back into the inbox and those types of things. So those are, yeah, those are kind of the two main ways
yeah.
that people find me.
Love it. And let's give the audience a free resource so that they can get some more help from you and let them know how they can find out more about what you do.
Yeah, yeah. So the resource that I have is a deliverability checklist. Now, deliverability can get like very nuanced, just kind of referencing that
Okay.
that story before, this phone number, right? But a little while ago, I put together this checklist that will help you diagnose most
Awesome.
everything. And if you get to the bottom of it and it's still having issues, that's when you need to find somebody like me to help you out.
Yay.
But yeah, you can go to I'll send you the link so you can post it too, but
Yep.
it's the emailos.com/email deliverability checklist. Um, and you can download the guide and the checklist there, and you can just basically check off all of those items. And at the end, you'll be in a good shape to get your emails to the inbox.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh my gosh. You are such a wealth of information. It just rolls off your tongue. I love the stories that you share to help illustrate those points. Yeah, I just appreciate you so much. And I think maybe I should have you back.
Yeah, this was a blast. Thank you.
Awesome. So I hope that was super helpful for you. And we'll see you next week on the Leverage Your Podcast show.